patients want to play an active role with the pharmaceutical industry. But don't take my word for it. Ask patients.
I think a great pharmaceutical company understands that everybody's opinion has value and that patients are experts in what it is like to live with the disease.
Because that only makes sense. Because if you're getting information from, say, an outside person that has no idea what it's like living with a chronic illness or disability, how are you going to further your research and, get the correct research for a certain chronic illness?
I think it's extremely important that we are part of the creation of the treatments and cures from the very beginning.
As early as clinical trial design to marketing and advertising.
And what materials should look like, and handouts, and informing patients how to use the medication.
How easy is it to get? What's the packaging like? Are the instructions clear?
Regarding prices and how we feel about coverage.
About barriers and health equity.
Really trying to understand what the unmet needs are for a patient community.
Not just valuing it and not just being open to it, but actively seeking to involve patients.
I think it's really important that there's a broad section of society represented. That way it more accurately reflects the patient population.
Along with more direct grassroots cultural outreach activations.
When I find out that nobody bothered to ask a single patient what they thought or how they were feeling or what outcomes they had, I think to myself, this is not a well-researched treatment.
I would feel like my contribution would somehow help other patients down the road.
People like me with the same disease is going to make it better on them.
Our voices must be heard.
It's hard enough to be sick, but feeling unheard, that's much worse.
I know it takes a team effort for pharmaceutical companies to bring these drugs to market, but ultimately it's the patients whose lives are affected day to day, so it makes sense that we would have a seat at the table.
Let me know that you care about my life and what I'm going through so that I can give you more information and we can continue working together.
We can't exist without you, and you can't exist without us.
Medical science is amazing, and I believe in it, and I support it. And I want to be involved because I want to see that elevate up.
I've learned a lot in the last 2.5 years since my diagnosis, and I can share some of that knowledge with a pharmaceutical company and hopefully help improve products in my own small way.
That experience has been invaluable for me. I now know how much work goes into a medication and why it can be so expensive.
Patient communities are more apt to trust pharmaceutical companies that do transparently partner with patients.
Transparency matters, results matter, data matters, and I need to believe that at the heart of all of this, the patient is first.
Make us the focus of pharmaceutical companies. Pharmaceutical companies can send the message that the focus is the patient.
But in some situations, it's just a tagline. It's just a sentence on a web page. It's not truly patient-centered care. It sounds good, but is it really?
Partnering with patients is not a nice to have, it's a solid business strategy.
You're asking to be direct consumer who's going to be consuming your good or your service, your product, for their input. That's valuable. It's very valuable.
Ask us questions, like we can sit on a panel, do surveys, recordings, anything they want, but they need to speak specifically to the patient.
I think I've generally heard positive things about what I've had to say.
I feel from those experiences that I've had that pharma is really looking out for the patient. They're creating drugs to help us, and there's people behind the big pharma names. And so those experiences have been really important to me.
A great pharmaceutical company puts patients first.
Especially companies who champion inclusivity and diversity.
We want inclusion as equal partners.
Why don't you guys be heroes and consult your patients?
Speak to the patients themselves, because without them, you're not going to get the perfect research.
If you start there and work your way back, you're going to be very successful.